When it was reported that 166 people had died in his buildings, Veli Gautier, a prominent contractor, went into hiding. Somebody tipped off the police, and he was arrested. The case dragged in the courts for months. In the end, Turkey's tragic vulnerability to earthquakes couldn't be pinned on a few scapegoats.
I think the point was that, who was responsible for the tragedy following the earthquake? And it's basically we all were. Everyone in Turkey was responsible. It's a sort of comment on 10, 20 years of this incredible urbanization in the region, and it's an inability to perhaps to plan and to anticipate.
While the aftershocks continued, preparations were more urgent than anyone could imagine. Another earthquake was imminent. The August quake had come and gone like a phantom in the night, destroying 21,000 buildings, claiming tens of thousands of lives before vanishing back into the earth. The disaster had left scientist Ross Stein saddened, but not surprised. 2 years earlier, he and his colleagues had anticipated the danger. Now, Stein is on his way to a gas station built right on the fault, close to the epicenter.
What you can see is that the first line of pumps is offset from the second island of pumps by about 12 feet. Look up and you can see the roof lines are also offset. And that's because the fault cuts right through the middle of the gas station and is offset or shoved over to the right, the back part.
The fault line that runs through the gas station moves an average of 1 inch per year. But this piece was stuck, and instead of moving smoothly, it stored up stress over a period of centuries. Then, in August 1999, the stress was suddenly released, and a long section of earth violently jumped 12 feet, all at once.
We think of the fault as a bunch of segments. One segment, in this case 120 kilometers or 80 miles long, ruptured. And so on that segment, all that stress that accumulated for 200 years has been released. But the stress has been transferred beyond the ends of the fault.
The stress relieved by the earthquake at İzmit is seen here in blue. This segment of the fault may now be dormant for many years. The red areas, showing higher stress, are the ones that now pose the biggest threat. Stress has moved, east and west. November 12th, 1999. Less than 3 months after the İzmit earthquake, Turkey was rattled by yet another powerful quake. Magnitude 7.2. It struck the city of Düzce, population 150,000. The surprise was that this new quake was east of the previous one, not west. For one of the few times in the 20th century, the fault's rupture happened in the opposite direction. Second Turkey, it was called by the rescue specialists of Fairfax County, Virginia. When they arrived in Turkey, joining the other rescue teams, they found a world of difference.
While it was extremely unfortunate for the country of Turkey to suffer 2 major earthquakes so close together, back to back, about 3 months apart, they did benefit in the sense of having learned lessons on the first incident in İzmit. The local military was heavily in presence there, provided a lot of command, control, and coordination. There was a much larger international response to a smaller, more localized area.
The affected area was lightly populated, so there were fewer casualties. The earthquake at Düzce left 845 dead and thousands shivering in the cold of late November. When the August earthquake near İzmit transferred stress in both directions along the fault, a segment to the east became overloaded and triggered the earthquake at Düzce. Stress was also transferred towards Istanbul, to a section of fault that hasn't snapped in over a century.
Part that isn't ruptured is the part that extends into the Marmara Sea, where the fault gets more mysterious because we know less about it, where it probably gets more complicated, but no matter what it does, it's loaded. And that's the part of the fault that threatens Istanbul.
Ross Stein is traveling to the danger zone, where the fault line plunges beneath the sea, some 15 miles from Istanbul.
The Marmara Sea is the unknown for us. The North Anatolian Fault is like a railroad track for 1,000 kilometers, 600 miles. It enters the Marmara Sea, splinters into a bunch of small faults. We really don't know where they are well enough.
The next big Turkish earthquake could come from right here and could strike at any moment.
Are you okay? We probably should get the life preservers ready.
The expedition is cut short by a submerged rock. It's a jarring illustration of the surprises the earth can throw your way. Back on dry land, Stein confers with his longtime friend and colleague, Aykut Barka. Together, they warned of an İzmit earthquake 2 years before it happened. They even published their study in a Turkish newspaper. Had their warning been acted upon, it conceivably could have saved lives. Now, there's the prospect of an even greater disaster.
I'm from Istanbul and I love Istanbul. Istanbul is, a kind of city like San Francisco, and, as a scientist, if anything happens in Istanbul, I have to question myself whether I did enough to warn people.
The city of Istanbul will definitely have a major earthquake, maybe 2 of them. This is going to be the biggest devastation of the century for the Turks at least.
The historic city is under threat. The scientists will redouble their efforts to warn its 12 million people of the danger. Will their warning be heard? The world has never seen a disaster like the one scientists believe is coming. Istanbul is arguably the most vulnerable city in the world. The probability of a quake, the proximity to the fault, and the city's enormous size all contribute to the risk. Worst of all is that many of its 12 million residents live and work in substandard buildings. Clearly, hundreds of thousands of lives are at stake. An international team of scientists has been working on the probability of an earthquake here. 2 of the members, Ross Stein and Aykut Barka, have called a press conference to announce the most current estimate. The details are so sensitive that they have been kept secret until now. It is only a probability study, not a prediction, But Stein and Barca are concerned that the risk is not taken seriously enough.
I want to inform people that there is enough risk and we should do something every second to reduce this risk.
Barca and Stein are denied the spotlight because suddenly the power goes out. Amid the lights mounted on television cameras, the press conference goes on.
Thank you. We're presenting work that is published tomorrow in Science magazine, trying to assess the likelihood of large earthquake shaking in the greater Istanbul area. And anybody...
The last time Stein and Barca issued a warning was in 1997.
Not telling you the truth.
2 years later, the earthquake happened in one of the two places they pinpointed. But back then, they gave a probability of only 12%. Now, they considerably upped the ante.
And what we find is a 62 plus or minus 15% probability